My mother-in-law told my husband to leave me, saying, "She's not good enough for our family." I smiled and walked away. When she discovered I owned everything she had schemed for, it was already too late. The moment my mother-in-law ruined her son's life came wrapped in pearls and a glass of expensive champagne. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, and I was clearing the table after a family brunch when she leaned in. Her voice a practiced whisper, honeyed with faux concern. "Claire, dear, let's not drag this out. You need to leave my son." I froze. The silverware in my hand suddenly felt heavier. Across the room my husband, Daniel, laughed at something his father said, utterly unaware of the bomb his mother had just dropped in our kitchen. "You've had your fun," she continued smoothly, adjusting the diamond bracelet on her wrist. "But you must see it, don't you? You're not the right fit for our family. Not good enough." I had heard it before. The subtle jabs at my upbringing, the veiled insults about my lack of sophistication, the way she always managed to introduce me as Claire, Daniel's wife, never acknowledging me beyond that. But today she wasn't hiding behind careful wording. Today she was making her move. "You don't have the right background," she pressed on. "No prestigious family name, no valuable connections. A woman like you only holds a man like Daniel back." I exhaled slowly, setting the plates down with precision. She mistook my silence for submission. "Don't look so surprised, dear," she continued, a condescending smile curling her lips. "Daniel will remarry. We'll find someone more suitable for him. Someone with the right family, the right class. You understand, don't you?" So that was it. This wasn't just an insult. It was an ultimatum. Daniel's mother had decided my time was up. She expected me to crumble, to be humiliated, to pack my bags and slink away quietly while she picked out a new, better wife for her precious son. I smiled. Not the smile of a woman defeated, but the kind of smile that should have made her uneasy. "I understand perfectly." Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, confused by my lack of resistance. She had no idea that the house she loved to parade around in, the one with the marble countertops and floor-to-ceiling windows, wasn't Daniel's. No idea that the thriving business she had always belittled, dismissing it as my little project, had outgrown Daniel's entire career. No idea that the money she so effortlessly enjoyed, the luxury vacations, the extravagant gifts, had come, not from their family's wealth, but from the empire I had built from scratch. She thought she had won. She had no idea she had already lost. That night, I didn't tell Daniel about his mother's little suggestion. I didn't have to, because while she was busy scheming to push me out, she had no idea that she was standing in a house that didn't belong to her. Literally. Our mansion, the one she adored showing off to her friends, the one she believed was Daniel's achievement, was mine. I had bought it before we were even married, in my name, with my money. I had allowed Daniel to put on the show, to let his mother believe that he had provided this life for us. But in truth, his paycheck barely covered the property taxes. It was all mine. And the moment she decided I was disposable, she had sealed her own fate. Over the next few weeks, my mother-in-law became increasingly bold. She dropped hints to Daniel. Her words sugar-coated in concern. "Claire just doesn't understand our lifestyle, sweetheart. Wouldn't you be happier with someone who truly fits in? It's not her fault, of course. She was raised differently. But let's be realistic here." I watched as Daniel, oblivious as ever, laughed off her comments, never suspecting the storm brewing beneath the surface. Then came the final push. One evening I overheard a hushed conversation between Daniel and his mother in the next room. "She's not right for you," she urged. "You've given her enough. It's time to move on." And then, the moment of truth. "If you divorce her now, I'll make sure you walk away with everything." I nearly laughed out loud. She thought she had power over me. She had no idea. That night, as I lay in bed beside my husband, the man who had unknowingly let his mother declare war on our marriage, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just amused. Because the truth was, they had already lost. They just didn't know it yet. The first crack in Daniel's perfect world came the next morning at breakfast. I sat across from him, sipping my coffee, watching as he scrolled through his phone with his usual distracted ease. He had no idea what his mother had set in motion the night before. No idea that the battle had already begun. "You're quiet today," he mused, glancing up from his screen. "Everything okay?" I smiled. "Everything's perfect." And it was. Because I had made my decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't even going to fight. I was going to let them win. Or at least let them think they had won. Because what's more satisfying than defeating your enemy? Letting them dig their own grave first. By mid-afternoon I received the first text. It was from my mother-in-law. "Daniel and I had a lovely lunch today. He agrees it's time to move forward. Time to move forward. She thought she was already in control. I took a sip of wine, letting the message sit unanswered for a while. I wanted her to feel confident. Overconfident. 2 hours later another message arrived. I hope you understand, Claire. This is what's best for everyone. I chuckled. Best for everyone? No, Margaret. It was only best for you. But I played my part. Of course. I texted back. I understand perfectly. She must have nearly dropped her champagne flute. I imagined her delight. Probably calling her friends, telling them how effortlessly she had removed me from her son's life. I could practically hear her gloating. She took it so well. She knows her place. Finally Daniel can be with someone worthy of our family. Oh, Margaret. She truly had no idea. That evening Daniel arrived home later than usual. He hesitated in the doorway as if weighing his words. Good. He was feeling guilty already. Hey babe, he started. Can we talk? Here it was. Of course, I said, sitting down on the couch. He sat next to me, rubbing his hands together, his classic nervous tic. God, he was predictable. I think we should separate. He finally said. I tilted my head pretending to process his words. It's just, we want different things. He explained, using the same rehearsed lines every cheater, liar, and coward has used since the dawn of time. Who's we? I asked, just for fun. A flicker of discomfort crossed his face. He wasn't used to me being so calm. He had probably expected tears, anger, some kind of outburst. But all I did was smile. If that's what you want, Daniel. I said smoothly. He blinked. Wait, you're not upset? Why would I be? He searched my face, confused. This wasn't the reaction he had been expecting. You don't want to fight for our marriage? I asked, standing up. It seems you've already made up your mind. I walked into our bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and placed it on the bed. I'll give you some space, I said. I'll stay somewhere else for a while. The look on his face was priceless. Claire, wait. I don't mean you have to leave tonight, I just meant. But I was already packing. Let him think I was hurt. Let him think I was heartbroken. Let him think he was in control. Little did he know, I was leaving all right. I was leaving him in the exact position his mother had wanted. Completely free, but freedom? It was about to cost him everything. I stayed at a luxury hotel that night. The same one my mother-in-law had once bragged about hosting charity events in. The irony was almost poetic. I took my time, ordering champagne, sitting by the window overlooking the city skyline, enjoying the quiet. Tomorrow Margaret would wake up believing she had won. Daniel would believe he was moving forward, unburdened by me. But by the time they discovered what they had truly lost, it would already be too late. Margaret must have woken up feeling victorious. I imagined her sipping her morning coffee in that sunlit dining room, basking in the glow of her triumph. She had done it. She had erased me. She had removed the woman she believed was unworthy of her precious son. In her mind, the next phase had already begun. She would find Daniel a new wife, one who came from the right background, someone she could mold, control, own. And as for me, I was supposed to be broken, miserable, a cautionary tale of what happens to women who forget their place. I smiled at the thought. She had no idea that while she was basking in her victory, her world was about to crumble. That morning Daniel learned his first hard lesson. I got a text from him around 10 a.m. Claire, we need to talk. Something's wrong with the house? I didn't reply. By noon my phone buzzed again. Why is the bank saying my name isn't on the mortgage? Call me. There it is. It had taken him less than 24 hours to realize what he had truly lost. But I wasn't done yet. I let the messages pile up, his confusion turning to frustration then panic. At 3 p.m. my lawyer sent me a simple text. He called. He's realizing the truth. Let me know when you want to respond. Not yet. Let him stew. It wasn't until the following evening that Margaret herself became aware of the disaster. I was in my hotel room enjoying a quiet dinner when my lawyer forwarded me another message. Margaret just called. She's furious. She claims there's been a mistake. I could almost hear her shrill voice. What do you mean my son's name isn't on the house? She must have insisted it was an oversight. A paperwork error. After all, in her mind everything Daniel had must belong to him. Except it didn't. Not the house. Not the investments. Not even the business she had mocked for years. I took another sip of wine. She would soon learn that the real mistake had been underestimating me. By the time Daniel and his mother demanded answers I was ready. I met them at the house. The one Margaret had once loved calling their family estate. Daniel was already waiting in the driveway, arms crossed, pacing. Margaret was beside him, her carefully polished poise beginning to crack. Claire, Daniel said, we need to talk. Do we? I said, stepping out of the car with slow, deliberate ease. Yes, his mother snapped. There's been a mistake. The bank is saying this house is in your name. That's not a mistake, I replied smoothly. Silence. Margaret blinked as if trying to comprehend words she had never imagined hearing. But that doesn't make sense, Daniel said, a touch of desperation creeping into his voice. I thought. You thought what? I asked, tilting my head. That you owned this house? That we owned it? I let the words sink in. Daniel, this house was never yours. Margaret's face drained of color. No, she said quickly. No, 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 that's not possible. That's reality. I finished for her. Daniel stared at me, shaking his head. But we lived here together. And I let you, I said simply. A beat of silence. And then Margaret did what she always did when things didn't go her way. She got angry. This is ridiculous. She spat, her voice rising. You were nothing without my son. You had nothing before him. I had everything before him. I corrected, my voice calm. And I still do. Daniel exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. I could see the realization beginning to dawn. This was bigger than just the house. Claire, Daniel said, voice softer now. Let's talk this through. Maybe we can work something out. I smiled. Oh, Daniel, I said lightly. We already did. That's why you signed a prenup. Margaret gasped. Daniel froze. And just like that, I watched their world shatter. I turned to leave, but not before dropping one last truth. You wanted to be free of me, I said. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted. And with that, I walked away, leaving them standing on my property, realizing, far too late, that they had gambled and lost everything. Margaret stood frozen, her carefully curated world crashing down around her. Daniel, meanwhile, was in pure disbelief. His face was pale, his mouth slightly open, as if he was struggling to process the words I had just spoken. Claire, we can fix this, he finally said. I almost laughed. Fix what? I asked. Your mother's little scheme? The way you went along with it? Or the fact that you thought you could just walk away and keep everything I built? Margaret stepped forward, fury radiating from every pore. You tricked him, she hissed. You manipulated my son into signing that prenup. I tilted my head, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. Tricked? I echoed. You mean the prenup that Daniel signed willingly? The one that legally protects my business, my assets, and my property? Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. Tell me, Daniel, I said. Did you even read it? Or did you just assume, like your mother, that none of this would ever matter? Silence. That told me everything I needed to know. Margaret's breath came quick and sharp. She wasn't just furious, she was panicking. This is wrong, she spat. You're being spiteful. You're tearing this family apart out of pure pettiness. Am I? I said, my voice smooth as silk. Or are you just angry that the game you started didn't end the way you planned? Margaret's face turned a deep shade of red. You were never good enough for this family, she snapped. I took a step forward, meeting her glare head on. And yet? I said softly. It's still my name on the deed. The air between us crackled. For the first time in her life, Margaret was powerless. And she knew it. I turned to leave, but Daniel grabbed my wrist. Gently, but desperate. Claire, please. I paused, looking down at his hand. A year ago, that touch would have meant something. But now? It was nothing more than the final grasp of a drowning man. You don't have to do this, he said. I made a mistake, okay? I let my mom get in my head. But we can fix this. I studied him for a moment. The man I had once loved. The man I had built a life with. But that man didn't exist anymore. Or maybe he never had. You don't get to play the victim now, Daniel, I said, my voice calm but firm. Not after everything. Not after you chose her over me. Daniel swallowed hard. I was an idiot, he admitted. Yes, I agreed. You were. He flinched at my bluntness. Margaret let out an indignant noise as if she couldn't believe I was speaking to her son that way. I ignored her. You and your mother wanted me gone, I said. And I gave you exactly what you asked for. So tell me, Daniel, why aren't you happy? He looked away, shame settling in his features. I didn't need to hear his answer. I already knew it. You think this is over? Margaret seized. I turned to her. It is over, I said simply. You just don't want to accept it. This house was supposed to be Daniel's. She cried. But it never was, I corrected. And neither was anything else you thought you were entitled to. Margaret was trembling now. She had spent years believing she was untouchable. That she could manipulate and control those around her. But standing there in the driveway of a house that wasn't hers, she finally understood. She had lost. And worse, she had never been in control to begin with. I didn't stay to hear Margaret's last desperate attempts to save face. I didn't care anymore. As I walked to my car, I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. I wasn't just walking away from Daniel. I wasn't just walking away from Margaret. I was walking away from all of it. From the quiet belittling, from the manipulation, from the constant battle to prove my worth to people who were never worthy of me. I was free, and they were trapped. Daniel, stuck with the consequences of his choices. Margaret, powerless in the empire she had tried to steal. And me? I was just getting started. Margaret wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. 2 days after I walked away from her and Daniel, I received a message. Not from Daniel, from her. You may have the house, but don't think for a second that you've won. My son will recover. He will find someone better. Someone who actually belongs in this family. Enjoy your lonely little empire while it lasts. I smiled as I read it. Oh, Margaret, still clinging to the illusion of control. She still believed Daniel had something to recover from. She still thought I had lost. She was about to learn the truth. The hard way. I ignored Margaret's message. I had no reason to respond. But life has a funny way of delivering karma without my help. A week later, a mutual friend, one of the few who had stayed neutral throughout the ordeal, reached out. You won't believe what's happening. I sipped my coffee, amused. Try me. Daniel lost his job. That caught my attention. How? Apparently, Margaret went to his boss. She tried to get him a promotion, saying he deserved it after everything. I almost choked on my drink. Of course she did. Margaret wasn't just overbearing. She was delusional. She had spent years believing that Daniel was entitled to success. That his name alone should carry weight. But the corporate world? It doesn't reward arrogance. What did his boss do? I asked. Not only did they not promote him, but HR started looking into his performance. Turns out he was already under review for underperforming. And with Margaret storming into the office and making a scene, they fired him. I exhaled slowly. South Daniel had lost his home. Daniel had lost his security. And now, he had lost his job. Not because of me, because of her. Margaret had spent years protecting Daniel from consequences. Making excuses. Smoothing over every failure. But now, she had destroyed him. And I wasn't even finished watching it all fall apart. The next call came 2 days later. This time, it was from Daniel. I let it ring. I wasn't interested. Then a text came through. Claire, please, can we talk? I stared at the message, considering my options. I didn't owe him anything. Not my time. Not my pity. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Daniel. He exhaled in relief. Claire, His voice cracked. I messed up. I know that. I don't know what to do anymore. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch between us. What do you want me to say, Daniel? I asked. I didn't think this would happen. He admitted. I thought. He hesitated. You thought your mother was right. A pause. He whispered. And there it was. The truth. For the first time, Daniel was admitting that he had placed his mother's opinions above everything else. Above logic. Above reality. Above me. And where had it gotten him? Nowhere. I didn't want to hurt you. He said weakly. But you did. Another silence. Can we meet? He asked. I closed my eyes. There it was. The last desperate attempt to pull me back. But he didn't want me. He wanted security. He wanted the life he threw away. And I wasn't in the business of saving men from their own arrogance. No, Daniel, I said. We have nothing left to talk about. And for the first time, I heard real panic in his voice. Claire, wait. Goodbye, Daniel. I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But Margaret, she wasn't done embarrassing herself yet. 2 days later, she showed up. At my office. Storming past my receptionist, she barged into my private office like she still had authority over my life. This is your fault. She spat, slamming her hands on my desk. I stayed seated, calm, unbothered. What exactly is my fault? I asked coolly. You ruined my son's life. You took everything from him. The house, the security. No, Margaret. I interrupted. I didn't take anything. Daniel gave it all away. She blinked. Excuse me. I leaned forward, my voice even. Daniel chose to listen to you. He chose to believe I was disposable. He chose to walk away. I let the words sink in. But tell me something, Margaret. I continued. When you told him to leave me, when you promised him something better, did you ever stop to think? What if you were wrong? She paled. I said softly, cutting her off. You didn't. I stood up, slowly. And now you have to live with it. Margaret opened her mouth, but no words came out. Because deep down, she knew the truth. I had never been the problem. She was. She had built Daniel into a man who couldn't stand on his own. She had raised him to believe entitlement was strengths. And in the end, it was her own arrogance that had destroyed him. Margaret stumbled backward, suddenly looking much, much older. Get out of my office, Margaret, I said calmly. She hesitated, one last moment of defiance. But in the end, she had no power left. So she left. And as the door clicked shut behind her, I let out a slow, satisfied breath. The storm was over. And I was still standing. Margaret never contacted me again after that day. Neither did Daniel. The silence was deafening, but it was the best kind of silence. The kind that signified freedom. No more manipulation. No more second-guessing myself. No more fighting for a place in a family that never deserved me. I had won. But more importantly, I had grown. The first morning I truly felt free. I woke up to the sound of nothing. No tension in the air. No forced conversations. No passive-aggressive texts. Just peace. And yet, the world kept moving. My business, thriving. My team, expanding. My confidence, unshakable. Funny, isn't it? Margaret had spent years trying to convince me that I wasn't enough. That without Daniel, I would fall apart. That my success was somehow tied to him. And now, while she and her son scrambled to pick up the pieces of their mess, I was too busy building something greater. Months passed and the whispers of Daniel's downfall never fully stopped. He had tried to rebuild. Tried to prove he could rise above the situation. But without me, he struggled. The job market didn't care that he was Margaret's son. The women he pursued weren't interested in a man who had lost everything. And his mother? She had become a pariah. Her meddling reputation ensuring that no one wanted to be associated with her. One day a former colleague of his stopped by my boutique. You dodged a bullet, she told me. Daniel is, well, let's just say he's not doing great. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to, because I already knew the truth. He had been given everything and he threw it all away. Meanwhile, I had built everything and I wasn't done yet. On the one-year anniversary of my new life, I hosted a small gathering at my flagship boutique. Not to celebrate revenge, not to gloat, but to acknowledge how far I had come. I had spent too many years proving myself to people who never truly valued me. Now, I was valuing myself. No more shrinking, no more waiting for approval, no more fighting for love that was never real. I stood in my boutique surrounded by strong independent women. Women who supported me, who understood me. And for the first time I truly felt at home. That's when I saw her. Melissa, the young woman Margaret had once paraded around as a better option for Daniel. She hovered near the entrance, hesitant, almost embarrassed. I raised an eyebrow, but before I could speak she did. I owe you an apology, she said softly. I leaned against the counter, waiting. I believed her, she admitted. I believed that you were the problem. That you were disposable. She looked down, and then I saw what she did to Daniel. And I realized, that could have been me. I let her words settle. Margaret had wanted me gone because she thought I was beneath them. And now, the very women she thought were better were seeing the truth. You're lucky, I said finally. You got out before it was too late. She exhaled, nodding. I heard about your success. She said, I wanted to see it for myself. I gestured to my boutique, my empire, my legacy. Well, I said with a smirk. Welcome to the little shop Margaret tried to destroy. She chuckled, shaking her head. She underestimated you, she said. A lot of people did, I agreed. As the night ended I stepped outside looking up at the city skyline. The same skyline I had looked at on the night Daniel left me. Back then I had been preparing for a battle. Now, I had already won. Not because I had taken revenge. Not because I had watched them suffer. But because I had taken my life back. Margaret had wanted me erased. Instead I had flourished. Daniel had thought he was moving on. Instead I had moved up. And the best part? I hadn't done it for them. I had done it for me. Margaret once told me I wasn't good enough for her family. And in the end, she was right. I wasn't good enough for them. I was better.